Welcome to the AI Chat Podcast. Today on the podcast, we have the pleasure of being joined by Ashley Gross, who is an expert at AI and who helps companies implement AI and does a lot of really interesting things. If you're not following her already on LinkedIn, I don't know what you're doing. You got to do it. Certified LinkedIn celebrity over there. We're excited to have you on the show. Welcome, Ashley.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so super stoked to have you on. For the listener, can you tell everyone a little bit about your background and kind of what you do today with AI with companies?
Sure. My background is I've been a marketer for 10 years. I started using AI back in 2020 because I wanted to consolidate my work week from 40 hours to 15 and maintain the exact same output and quality. It's also the year I found out I was going to be a mom. So that coincided really, really well with
Exciting.
getting intentional with my time. Thank you. And I never looked back. I started using AI and implementing AI pre-ChatGPT into enterprise marketing organizations. And the moment that I could actually tie experimentation and AI implementation to revenue was the moment that I never looked back. So within 3 months of rolling AI out to an enterprise marketing org, we actually overachieved our pipeline target by 25 million, which is not easy to do.
Incredible.
Thank you. And so I just thought this is way better for me because I love being a business owner. This is my third business I've owned. But I also thought that I could help more marketers and more businesses in general by sitting in this role. Because to answer your latter question of what I'm doing today, I work with mid-market to enterprise companies, and me and my team of consultants will go to them and diagnose their business's main problem and then create use cases for AI that go to solve that problem. So we're aligning their workforce at the top, but also the bottom. So it's not just top down, it's bottom up, and we're tying everybody's individual impact to the overall goal of generative AI for helping the business. And it's just fundamentally changing and shifting how people view themselves and what they want and their aspirations. And it's really cool. It's a really exciting time, and I love what I do. I never want to stop doing it.
Amazing. Well, my background also is in marketing, so I get the passion for it. It's exciting stuff. Talk to me. So right now you're working with companies and you're helping them implement AI stuff. You're working with the consultants. Give us maybe like one or two of the most exciting or transformative areas that you see AI having like just the most lift in a company, like being able to do the most. Is that like in blog writing, SEO? Is it in like content create? Like where are the areas that you're most excited about?
No, it's interesting. A lot of our clients are coming from health, space, government, and those are not typically the industries that you see experimenting with generative AI, or you don't hear about it a lot. And so for me, my answer would be it kind of widely differs, but I think that the biggest potential for AI in those organizations are pulling the data that they already have within their tech stack and gathering insights from it, whether that's to iterate their actual product and service or whether it's to create a better customer experience for prospects. It's in the little things. And I think that that's it. I don't think that it's necessarily a one use case because with healthcare, for example, we are working really hard to create content that can be translated into different regions. So you have a global campaign that a lot of budget's being thrown at and localizing that so that it's culturally representative of every area and everybody feels like this experience is for them. A great example of this would be the newest Apple ad that came out where it was about hearing aids and everybody resonated with that, even if it wasn't, in a specific language, like there wasn't really any words, you could just feel it. And so I would say that there's not one specific use case. It's more so just making brands come alive in ways that they already knew with tools that they already had. They just needed maybe that generative AI glue piece or the strategy behind it to bring it to life.
Okay, I love that. I love the customization aspect. I've seen a bunch of companies recently, and I'm sure you're looking at this kind of stuff. I'm curious to what degree you might do any of this stuff. But like, so for example, there's the whole industry of customer support, like a lot of telephone kind of stuff. And with a lot of the new generative AI voice things, one thing that I think is just such a fascinating concept is taking whatever your area code is or wherever someone lives, and you essentially, it sounds funny, but like you can do like a voice mask over someone that's talking, and you essentially have like call centers in the Philippines or whatever that are doing customer support, but it changes their accent when they're talking to not just like an American accent, perhaps if you're talking to someone in America, but you can go localized to like their exact area. So if I'm in Alabama, I'm going to have a different accent than if I'm in Arizona, or if I'm in North Carolina, or if I'm in New York. And to me, that is just like the most fascinating concept. Now, of course, I know there's a lot of people out there that are like, oh, for like spammers and scammers, like this is bad. And like, yes, this is definitely something to like, I think, put a pin in and be aware of. That's kind of, I feel like, on the like AI provider side, they're working to like, ensure that there's a way to report or flag bad actors, all that kind of stuff. But honestly, like I think even from like a healthcare provider, I think it'd be super cool. Like if I'm getting a call from someone and I'm trying to work through like a medical bill or some random thing, I don't know, like to me, it's kind of cool if they have like the same accent as you. I don't know. It's just such a fascinating concept, but like, I think you apply that to so many areas. Yes, that's like one way where it's like voices, but like you mentioned, I guess, yeah, tell me about some of the like customization things. Are you looking at like imaging, like when you're targeting people, it's like, oh, this is like a Hispanic male, so we're gonna have ads where we use generative AI to like target them that way. Like what does that look like, the customization aspect?
It really depends on what type of customer and what type of product, because obviously, when you're talking about specific companies in healthcare and tech and space, there's lots more regulations. So it depends.
Mm-hmm.
I think to hit on your point earlier with the calls, one use case that was particularly helpful was implementing, and there's a couple tools, so I won't name them because depending on where you sit and what your regulations are, maybe you can't even use the tools to begin with.
Right.
But as far as like phone calls go, instead of optimizing the customer support, optimizing the experience for the customer themselves. So every time that you call in, you have to usually like verify who you are by providing like your address or verifying your social security. And that's
Mm-hmm.
already really risky. And that doesn't even
Mm-hmm.
have AI involved in it. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of continuing on that from an operational standpoint, because it takes time to have these conversations and calls, having an AI functionality built in so that within 10 seconds of somebody speaking and saying their name, it automatically picks up on whether or not that person is who they are, so that you don't actually have
Interesting.
to ask those questions. You just go through it, they opt into it because it's their data, and then they
Uh-huh.
verify who they are the first time. And then after that, it will pick up whether they are who they say they are or not based on their voice.
That's so fascinating. I swear I've been on like calls with my bank before where they're like, hey, like everything that you call, they're like, hey, this is recorded for whatever
Yes.
quality assurance. I have recently heard a couple that are like, we're recording this for identity verification purposes
Yes,
if you're
that's
cool
it.
with that. And I'm like, whatever, like just get me to the person faster. I record my voice. I don't care, right?
Yes.
I mean, I'm sure there's still, I'm sure, an aspect of it where it's like if you use a tool like 11 Labs to like clone your voice, I wonder if people could try to like abuse that system. I don't know how it's built, but anyways, that's very, very fascinating, um, fascinating area. So tell me a little bit about what happens if a client comes to you. Like, so you're consulting some of these big companies. What does that process look like? A client comes to you and is like, what do they say? Are they just like, hey, we need to use more AI, what do we do? Or do they usually come and say, hey, we have a specific problem, how do we solve it with AI? Or like, what does that conversation look like with you typically?
So all of my leads have been inbound, I think purely because I have not done sales. So I've kind of just been stalling, putting together an outreach sequence. I haven't had to do outbound. And so that's a little bit of a muscle memory thing to me that I need to work on. So I can confidently say that all of the clients that have come to me have always said, we know we want to use AI. We know that there's room for improvement. That's really the
Mm-hmm.
commonality. They don't know what they need or what they want. They just know that there's more out there that could be solving the problems that they need solved. And the tools in their tech stack do not solve that. So a lot of
Mm-hmm.
times it's something like, they're transitioning CRMs and they don't know which one to go to, or that process from taking the data into one and putting into another is really, really time consuming and will manually slow down operations. So like, is there an AI tool that will check for duplicates and migrate that data for them so that they can kind of get back to doing their work in strategic? um, that's really, I would say, like what the commonality is between everybody is they don't necessarily know what they need or want. They just know that there's something out there that they could be doing to help the business. And that's a great starting point, is just being curious and wanting the business to do better and wanting your tech stack to be better. So I would say after that first conversation and me kind of hand holding and diagnosing the business problem, that's when they kind of get that confidence back, because as executives, they've seen these problems, they've solved these problems. But as you get more strategic, the responsibilities are less about what you're doing on a day-to-day basis and like managing outcomes. And so if you lose that muscle memory of experimentation, it kind of gives you like this fear paralysis of, I don't know what's going on, but like something
Hmm.
needs to happen. We need a solution here.
Okay. Um, yeah, that sounds amazing. I think that sounds really useful. If a company like listening today wants to work with you, what are the kinds of things that you typically help with? What are the kinds of things that yeah, you could, like I guess like what's your pitch to companies that are like, we know we need more AI, we know there's things we can automate. What are things that you would be able to help them with?
Here's the three business problems that I solve for, because I always say, especially with technology, you've got to start with the problem and then find the technology, find the consultants and the resources that are here to solve that problem. So the three problems I solve for are lack of clean and rich data. So if your CRM is buggy, that is the nucleus of your organization. I can help you get that back on track without having your whole entire workforce be stalled for a week. Lack of insight into the customer journey. So if you have digital touch points and marketing's bringing in leads, but sales doesn't know how they got the leads, so they can't close them, that's something
Hmm.
that I can help. Slow sales cycles, that's another one. I get really nerdy into these topics, but at the end of the day, it's really just going back to the basics. And do you have a strategy? Do you have a roadmap? If not, let's create you one. Are you married to your tech stack? Is it doing what you need it to do? And then let's fill in the pieces with some generative AI tools, build you some automations. And then even some of my clients are using agents to manage those workflows of automations that are connecting to generative AI tools. So it's really just audit your business. If you have one of those three problems, or you're starting to hear some rumors that could be connected to one of those three problems, then those are what you should reach out to me for. And if you just start with creating a roadmap and that's what you want access to, and as you kind of have a relationship with me where we build a roadmap and perhaps I help you vet some vendors, create your IT policy and your usage policy for your company, then you decide to go in and actually use technology to solve one of those problems. But it doesn't have to be an all in step. This is very much phases and a la carte, because I don't think anybody should be rushed to make a decision on everything all at once. They can tiptoe their way in.
Totally. Yeah, no, I would definitely agree with that. So you mentioned agents, and I'm curious what you're seeing there. Well, I guess first of all, what are you seeing there, and then let's talk about where I think this is going to go in the future, because I think that's a really fascinating conversation. But like you mentioned, some of your people are, some of your customers are using agents to help manage some of these workflows and stuff. What does that look like? What are these agents doing, like on an actual like operational level? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, tell us about that.
So I have agents running pretty much everything for me on a weekly basis for my own company. So the agents that I'm setting up for myself versus customers are a little bit different, I would say. But
Hmm.
some of the agents that I'm setting up for customers, for example, are um, compiling leads. And the automation is they take the leads from, let's just say, a Google spreadsheet, and they put those leads in through an enrichment like a Clearbit, and then they put them in their CRM. And then the agent actually starts to email out those leads based on the priority and the enrichments. And so you have a lead, you have all this extra information about them, you know what their problem is. Maybe you've scanned G2 and Capterra to figure out like what they don't like about their current tech stack. And now this email goes out from an agent every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday morning at 8 a.m. And then every Friday, I get a report of here's all the emails I sent, here's the open rates, click throughs, and responses. That's one great example.
That's
I would just
incredible. Yeah, that's amazing. What tools are you using to create these agents? Is it like Make or like Zapier, like automations, or like how are you building? Is there an agent platform you're using?
I love Agent AI only because I'm very bullish on HubSpot, and Dharmesh
Okay.
is the creator of HubSpot. So I
Yeah.
like Agent AI because the user experience is mimicked. I really go with whatever my customers' love language is. I have a lot that are very pro Microsoft. And so
Hmm.
whenever that's the case, I'll use Power Automate and I'll code my own agent so that everything can stay in that interface for them. I like a Zapier. I don't mind that. I'll use Make, Coda, N8N. It just kind of depends. I've used them all. I think that each one serves a good use case for certain areas. But it's not like a one size fits all. It kind of depends on like how much coding is needed, who's going to maintain it, because that's like a
Hmm.
non-glamorous talk that doesn't come up a whole lot. Whoever
Yeah.
puts these in place should probably
Yeah.
be staying at the company for a really long time and have a high enough level of clearance, because it is a lot of superpowers that you have.
Hmm. Okay, so something that I think a lot of people talk about interchangeably is kind of like automations and agents. let's talk about where the future of this goes, because I think right now, even what we call agents probably won't seem like agents in a few years, right? Because a lot of these things, they're AI automations. You set them up, they can go look at data, they can grab things like you mentioned and put them in a CRM and do these things. But like when it comes to like a real true pure agent that we're hoping, OpenAI says they're working on next, for example, or even Anthropic kind of came out with their computer view tool where it can actually like go take control of your computer and do tasks.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think those tools becoming more prolific is going to impact marketing, sales, all of this? How do you envision those being used, right? Where you actually have like a piece of software that's like beyond just following a set like line of automations that you've set up, but it's kind of like making a little bit more decision making and actually going and doing things. Like, what does that look like?
I mean, it's already happening. Zapier is a great example, right? They are an automation company, but they have central agents that they just rolled out. And by the way, they're in beta, but they're amazing. I have them set up everywhere for myself and a couple clients. And so I think that you're going to see more of the companies that have automations in place adding AI agents, because it just makes sense for the users that are creating automations that they want their agents to run to do that on the same company platform. It's the same user experience. You don't have to go learn a new website or how to create a new agent if you're using automations and Zaps, because even though it's two different things, it's still the same platform. It still looks the same, feels the same. So it makes the onboarding experience easier. So I see a lot more companies like automation companies and the generalists like Anthropic, OpenAI creating their own. But I also see in the near future, there's lots of folks who, I mean, marketers are a great example, who are not super tech savvy by nature, but they have very specific workflows that they need the agent to do and to operate on. So I feel like we're going to have an e-commerce situation where you can buy this front end and this back end. Because if I like OpenAI's back end, but I don't like their front end experience, perhaps I'll use a Jasper, right? And it's the same thing for agents. And as far as how it's actually going to disrupt the workforce, I think that we're going to start to see a lot of conversations happening around licenses, because when you get a license for a tool, they usually issue one, right, per plan, and then you have to pay for another license. So that means that if you had an agent running your workflow, then you as yourself could be on that tool from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Your agent would have to start at 8:01 p.m. and stop at 7:59 a.m. So I think we're going to start to run into like these technical issues and disruptors, and there's going to be almost like a subscription based license fee for lots of these agentic tools, so that you don't have to have a two license issued for one tool. You can have a subscription, and in that way you can have as many licenses as you want for X amount of tools. I see it more being a playground, for instance.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. That is such an interesting concept. Because yes, you're right. That is an issue where, like, let's say you have 10 agents running different tools. Like, technically, OpenAI wants you to have 10 seats on their Teams plan, and you got to buy one for each of your agents. But you're like, hey, but I only use this agent like so often. I'm currently building a platform called AI Box, which is pretty much a playground. It lets you access all the different AI tools, and you could build. We're working on the building workflows and automations and agents, all that kind of stuff in the future. The way ours works, which I think you kind of touched on and probably is the way to go, is you essentially just buy credits. You have a whole bunch of credits. You can use as many tools simultaneously, agents, everything could be running at the same time. And it's just based on a credit system. Once you use your credits, you refill the credits. So you're right. I think there's going to have to be some pivots like that away from just like seats when things kind of run at different times and there's different amounts.
Right.
That's very interesting. Yeah, it's a very interesting concept. So when you're talking about the agents from Zapier, were you talking about how they did their like 3,000 agent integrations, or what was the platform what was the tool or platform you were talking about that's in beta from Zapier?
It's Zapier, but it's pardon me, Zapier. It's central.zapier.com/bots, and you build agents right on it. And it works perfectly because you set it up differently, but it looks the exact same. So when you're setting up a Zap and you're setting up an agent, it remembers those automations. And it's nice because if you have your automations set up there and then create your agents, when there's an issue with your automations, it will tell you how to fix it because you're still within its own website and it's still the same company. So then you don't run into the issue of you got to go over here to this automation platform, fix it, come back to the agent, troubleshoot that. It's like self-cleaning, right?
Yeah, no, I love that. I think I think that they've definitely nailed that. I'm trying to build something similar, so I like how they're doing that. And I think the big problem that they're solving is we have, for example, someone like Anthropic came out with, I believe, their computer vision or their computer view, where like you give it a a giant list of things to do, and it goes and executes those tasks. And I think the problem with that is you want the agent to go and execute something, but you actually kind of want it to do it in a very specific way. So I think using something like Zapier, where you've built certain automations, you tell it to go accomplish the task, but you tell it to go use your automations to do that, you're going to get a very predictable outcome because the certain segments or chunks you figured them out, and maybe you even have some of your own personal company data in there, some IP, some things that aren't publicly available on these AI models. So yeah, I think that's phenomenal. That's such a cool tool. Oh my gosh, Ashley, this has been amazing having you on the podcast today, sharing your insights. I've learned so much. I have a whole bunch of new tools to look into. I'm sure there's a bunch of listeners that are feeling the same way. I guess before we wrap this up, one thing I would love to ask you is, what is one big prediction you can make about or that you think is going to happen with AI in marketing, AI in sales over the next 1 to 3 years? Some big things that you think people should be looking out coming down the pipe, or I guess big direction shifts you'd see in the industry.
Lots more jobs around just what we both were talking about just now. For instance, the ability to create and deploy and manage and iterate these agents is not easy. It takes a very long time to optimize generative AI tools in order to put them on an automation, or in order to create an AI agent that manages all of that. That takes a special set of skills. And as marketers, we already come with that domain expertise. So like, we know the workflow for market research, what comes after market research. You probably want to create content based off of that research. So there's certain skill sets that we already have. But I fear that because it's new technology, we feel like we don't know as much as we do. So I think my biggest prediction is there's going to be a lot more jobs. People just need to figure out a way to pull what they know about marketing and roles and creating really good experiences, and use the technology to do all of those things, because that is going to be where the demand is, and it's only going to continue to grow from there. If you can write really good copy, that's amazing. But if you can use AI to take the copy that you wrote yourself and iterate it according to the best practices and optimize it per channel, that is where I see 2025 and beyond going, is the ability to use technology to do multiple things from one perspective and manage it.
Amazing. All right. Well, I'm excited. I will definitely have to have you on again. Listen, if you guys enjoyed the podcast today, make sure to go check out Ashley Gross over on LinkedIn. I'll leave a link in the description to her LinkedIn to reach out. If you have a company that wants to work with her, I'm assuming Ashley's at the best place for them to reach out.
Yes, please.
Fantastic.
Very active on LinkedIn.
All right. Fantastic. Thanks so much for tuning in, everyone. Make sure to leave a review to the podcast if you haven't already. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day.